It's the question that brought you here.
Are you satisfied with what life throws at you without ever asking why? Because I'm not. I mean, if you're content talking endlessly about the same recycled subjects over and over, just go to another podcast, because this is a new platform for my friends, clients, and anyone who wants to hang around a virtual campfire and discuss questions you've always had but never dared to ask. My name is Rich Nisbet. Welcome to It's the Question. All right. Podcast number 4 of It's the Question. Last podcast, we asked the question, what do you think happens when you die? Come on, I told you this is not going to be the normal talk. I told you these are things that people don't bring up at dinner parties. But this is a subject that everybody has on their mind at some point. And it probably is on your mind the older you get. Don't you think? Yeah. The answers that we got were pretty varied, actually. And that's cool because the more viewpoints that you get, the more you have to evaluate with. Oh, come on. I mean, the whole point of the podcast series is to have that statement where you say, wow, I never looked at it that way. And that's good. Looking at a subject like death at many different angles other than what you were taught when you were little going to church or what your college professor or your parents told you could be very enlightening, to say the least. Now, I can tell by some of the answers to that question that a lot of you guys think that's a pretty creepy question, and I understand why. But I was doing some math the other day. Listen to this. The average lifespan of a human body right now on this planet is 79 years. It's like 82 years for women and like 76 for men, so it averages to 79. Now, there's 12 months in a year, so if you multiply 12 months times 79 years, you got a total of 948 months. 948 months of existence. Does that ring true to you? That you've only got 948 months of conscious existence? I mean, I don't know. It doesn't really sit with me. I'm sorry. I mean, it gets worse. Because take the years you're a little baby. That's pretty much a wash. You're just a little spaz without any real direction. And then the next years until you're 18, you're being told what you have to think and what you have to do and how you have to act. So by the time you're 20, you've already burned through 240 of the 948 months of that human body that you've got right now. You want to really freak yourself out? Take your current age, subtract it from 79 years, multiply that by 12, and that's the amount of months that you have left to live. Yeah, don't even do that. It's too weird. What's the point? Okay, so here's 3 answers to the question, what do you think happens when you die? Number 1, I don't want to think about it. The next one is, I hope it's not painful. And then we have, that's a scary question. I know it's a scary question. It's creepy, but it's something that we're all going to face. So why not prepare? I mean, I was thinking about this. Let's say you decide you want to run a 10K race. And it's coming up in about 4 months. So what do? You start Googling 10K races. How do I run them? How do I exercise for them? What kind of food do I eat? What kind of shoes should I buy? What should my regimen be of running? You figure it out, so when the race comes, it's not such a surprise and a mystery. Or you want to cook a certain dish. You grab a cookbook, you look over the ingredients and how you do it. You go to the store, you look them over. You figure it out, so it's not such a mystery. Why don't we do that with the subject of death? Because there is a lot of information out there. A lot of different opinions, a lot of different viewpoints. Scientists talk about it. Spiritualists talk about it. You can Google it. I mean, death is part of life, so don't back off from it. Don't get freaked out about it. Learn about it. Study it. Get others' opinions about it. Read books about it. Watch videos on it. And when that time comes, you'll be much more stable and have a much deeper understanding of that subject. Okay, so the next category of answers I call lights out, and you'll see why. All right, the question, what happens when you die? One answer was, it all fades to black. And another person wrote in, it's nothing, lights out. Although, I hope not. And finally, someone wrote in, I'll keep it pretty simple. I believe when you die, it's like a light switch. When you are alive, it is on, and when you die, it is off. Nothing more. Now, if it's true that it's going to be complete blackness, no consciousness, end of everything, none of our worry will matter anyway, will it? But I have to say, why don't you guys Google near-death experiences? Because there are millions of people that are thought to have died legally, but returned and explained what they experienced outside of their dead body. I mean, there are some wild stories. There are people that have been able to detail what was said in rooms far away from the operating room where they died. I read a book once about this world-class brain surgeon who had died from a horrible disease. He was completely brain dead for 4 days, and he returned. Prior to this near-death experience, he did not have a religious or spiritual bone in his body. But a couple months after he returned, he wrote an entire book about his experiences. And the main thing that I remember from that book, he said, we have had it all wrong. We are not physical. We are consciousness. And that concept is validated by the next answer that I will read for you. To the question, what do you think happens when you die? This person said, it depends on how prepared you are. It's terrifying on one hand, but on the other hand, you simplify from a complexity. Yeah, look at it this way. Your body and your thinking process and your survival mechanisms to keep going in life, that's the complexity. But you, as consciousness, are a very powerful simplicity. All right, so the first group of guys said it was a creepy question. The next group said it was lights out, nothing, fade to black. This next group seems to think that something continues somewhere. So here are some answers from that category. The first one is energy dissipates and is transferred. The next person said you wake up in another dream. I think that's kind of cool. Life is an illusion and you wake up in another one. Someone said your spirit goes somewhere. I'm not sure where. And finally, this person says, it's my hope, and this is from the heart because it's hope, that we go to a better place. I hope so. Okay, the last group of answers I like to categorize as new life and new identity. Here we go. To the question, what do you think happens when you die? One person wrote in and said, now that's a damn good question. I think your soul moves on and departs the body. After that, you got me. I don't know, or I just can't remember. Yeah, another guy said you probably find another body. So, of course, now we're getting into reincarnation, right? I like this one. He says, I'm an old soul. I was here before, but I'm not sure how many times. To answer this question scientifically, my soul leaves this body, though I'm not sure what its further plans are yet. But I do wish to attain liberation and end this body-soul cycle before I physically die here, which is called moksha in Hinduism. Yeah, like I said, if you start studying the subject of death, you are going to find that those Eastern philosophies like Hinduism and Buddhism, they feel the soul is separate from the body, and that when the body has died, the soul will continue. Now, these last two answers use an analogy to explain what happens when we die. This guy writes, you exit the worn-out car you've been driving for the past number of years, and you look for a new model in a family that has a very high survival potential. Don't follow the light. Stay close to the family and friends until you find the above candidate, and then jump in. You also could go off to some faraway planet or system and just hang out a few thousand years, but that gets old really fast. Whew. All right, so finally, this answer comes from a Christian minister that resided over my grandpa Nisbet's funeral. My grandpa was named Stephen Nisbet, and when he died, the Christian minister said at the funeral the following. He said, Steve was living in a house, but the plumbing started to malfunction, the electrical started short-circuiting, the studs in the walls began to deteriorate, and the foundation could no longer support it all. So Steve went off to find a new house. He went to find a new house, meaning he went to go get another body and do it all over again, which is the subject of past and future lives. Just like near-death experiences, there's a lot of books, a lot of videos, a lot of TED Talks, and a lot of information about past lives and people claiming to have lived before. This is especially evident with children between the ages of 3 and 5. Kids apparently have a very vivid recognition of who they were before and some of the details of their earlier life. And they do tell their parents in different ways with pictures or stories or what they're interested in. But we adults tend to not listen to them, and we assign it to, oh, they're just cute. Oh, look at those imaginations. But there are many parents around the world that have actually listened and gotten details about what the child was explaining. And when their child gave names and locations and relatives that were associated with that previous life, the parents went out and verified to minute detail all the stuff their son or daughter was telling them. And when you see case after case after case of this, you just can't quite pin it on imagination anymore. There's got to be something to it. So to summarize the answers that you guys sent in to the question, what happens when you die? Some people don't want to think about it. Some people feel it's lights out at the end of body death. Some people think that their energy or their spirit goes somewhere, and others think that they're going to have a next life in a new identity. So, what could be the takeaway from all of this? Well, I'm looking this over. You know what I think? I think it is possible that whatever you believe is going to happen is what you will make happen. I really do. I think you have been able to negotiate your life around trauma, pull yourself out of bad situations, bad relationships, overcome adversity, devastation, loss. You've been able to figure it out and continue. And that's what I think is going to happen at body death. I think whatever you believe, you're going to make happen. If you think you're going to go to heaven, you will create a heaven to go to. If you feel it's going to be lights out, you're going to turn that light out, and your awareness is going to stop. If you feel your spiritual energy is going to dissipate and transfer into other living things on this planet, maybe that's what's going to happen. Or if you want to try it again and get into a new family with a new identity and continue with a life on this planet, maybe with enough preparation, you'll be able to pull that off. I mean, evidence points to the fact that you are a spirit separate from the body. So when that body's gone, I don't think you realize the amount of freedom and possible power and communication abilities you might have without the constrictions of that body, which is pretty much designed just to keep you in a survival mode, to be constantly scanning for danger and figuring out how to keep that body going. Without a body, who's to say what abilities you might possess that you're not even aware of right now? Hey, remember in the movie Star Wars when Obi-Wan Kenobi was fighting Darth Vader and he finally said to him, "Vader, if you strike me down, I will become more powerful than you can imagine." And one other thing on this subject. There is a new science called quantum physics, which claims that consciousness creates reality. You remember that doctor I mentioned who had a near-death experience and came back and said, "We have had it all wrong. We are not physical. We are consciousness." Well, what exactly is consciousness? It includes a lot of things. It's how we perceive our world. It's our thoughts and our intentions. It's being aware. So if we are not our bodies and we are consciousness, and the claim that quantum physics makes that consciousness creates reality, then when our body dies, there is a real possibility we as consciousness will create the next reality. We've all heard the phrase, "What you don't know can't hurt you." I think that's a lie. I think the only thing that can hurt you is what you don't know. So on the subject of death, don't back off from it. Study it, figure it out. And when that time comes, maybe you can move from the first and second category of it's creepy and lights out to the categories of something goes somewhere and I can possibly live again. So how do you prepare yourself for something like this? Well, a lot of the Eastern philosophies use meditation as a hope that they can overcome the death-birth cycle and have liberation at body death. A lot of people use religion for that purpose. You can read books on it, like I said. You can watch videos on near-death experiences and past life claims. But the progressive question that I mentioned in an earlier podcast is a way to regain some abilities that you might have forgotten you had, uncover old decisions that would prevent you from staying conscious, expose you to your true nature apart from your body, which is pretty enlightening, and a whole gamut of epiphanies on the subject of who you really are. Now, as a counselor, coach, I have refrained from giving advice because I use these progressive questions to help pull people out of conditions they didn't want, up into abilities to uncreate the problems that they forgot that they had originally created. You do that enough times, you start developing a certainty of yourself beyond anything you could imagine. And that's why it could help somebody at the end of life. Now, here's how we're going to do it. Take a piece of paper. At the top of it, write number 1 and number 2. There's 2 questions that I want you to ask yourself. The first question is number 1. Think of something you would like to change. All right. Question number 2 is think of something you'd like to leave unchanged. Now, here's how to use this technique. You've got the questions at the top of the page, right? So go down now, put number 1, and write down your answer to the first question. Think of something you would like to change. Once you've done that, write down number 2 and answer the second question. Think of something you would like to leave unchanged. Write down as much detail to these answers as you can. Then go back to question 1. Think of something you'd like to change. Write down the answer. Next, write down the answer to think of something you would like to leave unchanged. Then go back to question 1, then question 2, question 1, question 2, back and forth until something hits you. This is going to be a personal thing to you. It's going to be an aha moment, an epiphany, a realization about something you uncovered that you hadn't looked at before, or something you always knew was there, and now you're actually acknowledging it. Yes, this is how I really think. I can't believe I forgot this. Now, this exercise could take a couple minutes, 10 minutes, maybe half an hour, depending on how many answers it takes you before you have that big aha. And make sure you don't go past that point. A big realization is what those 2 questions are designed to give you. Once you've reached that point, throw your pen down, start laughing, and if you want to, send me the results you got from doing that exercise. I would love to hear what happened after doing those 2 questions over and over. So here's the next questions for the next podcast. Think of something you would like to change. Think of something you'd like to leave unchanged. Hey, thank you very much for being part of this. Email your replies and your stories to answers@itsthequestion.com.